It leads me very neatly into our next guest on our travel program. It's Jake Grieves-Cook. He's the managing director of Gamewatchers Safaris and Porini Camps, and is the founder of the Conservancy concept in the Masai Mara. He's our second guest in the travel hour this morning. Welcome to you, Jake.
Yeah, thanks, Tamara.
Now, can you explain why the Conservancy concept was necessary? What was happening before it was introduced?
Well, in the past, what has happened, Tamara, is that wildlife conservation has really depended upon national parks and areas set aside by the government. And that was fine when the whole national park idea was first established in the 1940s in Kenya. But in the period between then and the last decade, we've had a huge increase in human population.
Yeah.
And so the area that was available to wildlife has really more or less disappeared in huge areas of the country because of the increase of people. And the idea of the conservancies was to expand the wildlife protected areas, the habitat that is available for wildlife, by using land outside the parks and government reserves, which belong to local communities.
Yes.
And so if we hadn't come up with the concept of establishing wildlife conservancies belonging to the communities, that land was becoming fragmented and fenced and turning into small-scale farms and so forth. So the whole concept is based on the need to create protected habitat for wildlife species.
So how did you go about it? And I gather, obviously, that the local people also were very much involved in this whole process.
Yes, the local people have had to be very involved in the process because they own the land.
Of course.
And what it all boils down to in the end is how do you make land available for wildlife? You know, the reason that wildlife species in the world have disappeared and the numbers have crashed is mainly due to loss of habitat. You know, there's just nowhere for these wild animals to live, especially the large dangerous species. They can't live with people. And so when the habitat disappears, the wildlife disappears. So it's very much a question of land. And outside the reserves and national parks, there was land which was formerly wildlife habitat, but which has become heavily settled. And the people who've settled the land own it. And we engaged with them and made it possible for them to continue earning a livelihood and to earn an income by having their land set aside for wildlife. And so it was very much a matter of working with the local communities, showing them that they could earn an income from wildlife conservation, which made it possible for them to set aside big tracts of land as wildlife habitat. And then the animals started coming back.
Do they then earn a rental income, or is it earned through employment?
It's actually both. So what happens is the first conservancy that we set up on community-owned land was next to Amboseli at a place called Selenke Conservancy. And that land is leased from the community. The area they've set aside as their wildlife habitat. They moved all their villages out and they set it aside for the wildlife. They earn a rent, which is based on a rate per acre. And then they also earn an income because the camps that we use for the tourists are run by the Maasai community members, and the warden and all the rangers and the guys who repair the roads and so forth. It's all
infrastructure,
local community who are employed. And then we took the idea to the Mara ecosystem and did the same thing there. So they earn an income from both, from rents for the land that they own and from employment and livelihoods.
So it's working?
It's working, yes. There's a kind of three elements to it. You know, one is the land and the wildlife and the environment, which has to be protected. That is definitely working. We've seen big numbers of animals now. I mean, when we started at Selenke near Amboseli, they hadn't seen elephants there for 20 years. Now we have elephants regularly all the time. And then in the Mara, the lions in East Africa have been under threat, but we have about 130 individual lions in the conservancies we've established next to the Mara Reserve. So in terms, and the environment has really improved. I mean, areas that were previously overgrazed are now, there's plenty of grass, the vegetation has recovered. It's a very, very stark contrast when you compare it to the areas beyond, where there's a lot of charcoal burning, felling of trees, and poaching of animals for bushmeat and ivory and so on. So from a wildlife point of view, it's worked very well. From the community's point of view, they're getting an income and they're getting jobs. People who never had a job before have now got work and earning an income. And then from the tourism point of view, which is a third strand to this all, tourism is what pays for it. We're finding that the visitors have a very rewarding experience because it's low numbers, it's low density, very few. We have a maximum of 1 tent to 700 acres, so that the numbers of tourists are deliberately kept low so that there's a better experience for the visitors.
And that's why it's so expensive,
we depend upon tourism to pay for it all.
Yes, of course. Is that why it's so expensive? Because it's so...
well, it's not necessarily so expensive. I think if you compare it with other safari destinations, we have very small camps. They're only 6 tents in Porini Mara, for example.
Okay.
But we also have a range of products. So we have an adventure camping product where, 1 week, including internal flights, is less than $2,000. And that includes, the flights to Amboseli and to the Mara, all the game drives and open-sided 4x4s and food.
Oh, that is good value.
It is fantastic value. And then in the sort of upper end Porini camps that we have, the rates inclusive of park fees and game drives, activities, drinks, and accommodation meals, usually somewhere around $400 per person per night. So we're not talking about mega expense.
No, I was talking to a chef at one of these lodges, these types of lodges, and I said, well, where do you get all your food from? And he said, well, it's all shipped in really, because you can't just nip down to your local spa for a lettuce. So it is a different sort of experience. Do you grow anything there?
No, we don't, because the whole idea is we don't want farming in the wildlife conservancies. Yeah. And the Maasai community have traditionally been livestock rearers. So all the food and supplies come from Nairobi.
Yes.
We bring them in by air or by truck. We're also very eco-friendly. We don't have a generator in any of the camps. It's all based on solar.
Oh.
And we're careful about things like water consumption. We're not keen on things like swimming pools and jacuzzis and so on. This is meant to be a wildlife experience, getting close to the animals. And having fantastic guides who can really, they're like, walking encyclopedias. Our guides, our Maasai guides are fantastic. So we want to give people comfort. The camps are very comfortable, they've got ensuite bathrooms, but we shy away from the kind of ultra luxury. We don't see that as being what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is conserve the habitat, provide good income and livelihoods for the community who own the land, and give the visitors a fantastic experience of being in the wilderness, in areas where there's seriously large numbers of wildlife, with guides who are going to show it to you without masses of other tourists being around.
Jake, it sounds wonderful. Now, you've got, I'm just looking here, it's Gamewatchers Safaris and Porini Camps, which are the tented camps, is that right?
Yes, that's it.
So you've got a website, and I'm looking at it, it's www.porini.com. And that will take people to what you've got on offer. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So Porini is Kiswahili for in the wilds or in the wilderness.
Yes.
And our website, porini.com, has a range of different safaris that we offer. It includes our camps. There's information there on how to plan a safari, the different parks and wildlife areas in Kenya. We can also arrange safaris to other people's lodges, some of the other leading camps and lodges, as well as our own, but essentially our mission is to promote and support the wildlife conservancies, working with the communities, and giving people the chance to stay in our Porini camps, where they have the local guides and they have the opportunity to be in a wilderness area without all the tourists.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. You've ticked all those boxes. Jake Grieves-Cook, thank you so much. Managing Director of Gamewatchers Safaris and Porini Camps. Thanks for chatting to us.
Not at all, Tamara. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.